at Marina Bay Sands. And with me today, I'm very pleased and very privileged to have Georg Zola, who is the co-founder of AI Transformation and Literacy Institute, as well as the co-founder of the Center of AI Learning.
Almost. Leadership.
Leadership.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
At this Super AI, we hear a lot of discussions and a lot of topics around, decentralized AI, about the intersection of crypto and AI, about AGI. There's so much buzz and excitement over this, where AI is going, right? But you have also shared your insights and I think some of your concerns around jumping in too quickly and this fear of missing out, FOMO. What do you see as contributing to this FOMO?
Well, FOMO sells, right? Like whether or not it's a Hello Kitty meal at a McDonald's and or any other situation, when you can put people into the idea that there's land to grab, profits to be made, and that you have to compete with others, there's FOMO, and people speed up, right? And I think there's an interesting challenge that we have with AI is, on one hand, the technology is very nascent, right? Like everyone who uses it can tell you that it's not magical. We have a lot of problems to solve. The results are somewhat questionable. It's a reason it's a consumer technology, right? In consumer technology, you can make an image generator that creates terribly malformed hands and so on, but 1 in 6 times it's right. And then the consumer will take that one image, hold it up, behold, AI. It's awesome. It's working. You should use it too. It gives a bit of a wrong impression of where we are, right? We discovered this technology in 2017. By we, very broadly, I mean tech. It was a team at Google writing the Transformer paper. And that is interesting for a few reasons, actually, and really important to understand. The technology was sitting at Google and wasn't productionized, right? So the company that today is like rolling out AI overview, let them eat glue, half-assed products at times in order to rush into the market. That is FOMO. Microsoft, on the security side, rushing recall out and now being lambasted by every security professional in the world for creating a nightmare, is FOMO. Right, we are in a land grab, but that land grab started 7 years ago at the very companies that are now running, and they chose not to.
Yes, of course, you have experience working in one of these big techs, and you have, I would say, some first-hand observations in some of these competitive market pressures when developing or pushing out innovative products.
Yeah, so look, when I was at Meta, or Facebook before, from 2015 all the way to end of 21, I was a director of business engineering, so working with product teams on one side and working with customers and partners on the other side, so the intersection between big tech and the real world, as I would call it. And when you want to understand organizations, you have to understand the incentive system. I'm also a game designer. I spent 15 years making AAA video games, and the incentive systems that we give our players dominates how they play the game. It's a very humbling experience. You make a beautiful game where people are supposed to battle each other, and you realize one day no one plays a healer, right? And that's a problem. So you go out and you say, well, people should get points for healing, right? And what happens is the next day you log in, no one is fighting, and you go and you see they're all standing in the lava healing themselves. Right? Because you created an incentive system. The incentive system that dominates big tech is KPIs. We set KPIs on a 6-month basis, and the teams that hit the KPIs get a lot of money, and the teams that don't hit the KPIs don't get a lot of money. So you have a natural selection mechanism, and KPIs are things you can measure. Things like societal harm is really hard to measure, and if you don't measure it, you don't have to deal with it, so the incentive isn't right there. And you end up with a situation where over time you are biasing your own organization kind of via genetic pruning to the people who are hyper growth oriented, right? We call that growth hacking, growth managers, growth PMs. And AI is in a way very similar. It's just an extension of what we've always done. We take a product. There is no big, lots of people sitting in a room having opinion of how it should be. We put out the product and we let the data speak, as in how do users behave. Mm-hmm. And then when A goes up and B goes down, we take A, we put it out just like we genetically prune plants to be more productive over time, and we end up with the maximally addictive product.
You speak about societal harm. I'm going to come to that later. But just talking about some of the concerns that you raise as well, you also caution about the sort of the instability when it comes to the economics. You point out, the GPU costs could be rising in the future. The software heavily subsidized, the software as a service is heavily subsidized. But looking at this conference today and also yesterday, there's some talks of, decentralized GPU, some talks about open source, AI solutions. How do you think that this will, change the economics?
Yeah, look, I don't want to come across as I'm against tech, against AI. I'm a very pragmatic person, right? You discover gunpowder, you probably look at it and go we should probably bury this in the ground. But the moment that very simple chemical recipe is out and people use it, to compete with other people, that is out of your hands. That's not going back into the ground. And when we look at AI, when we look at decentralization, I've been long enough around to have seen Web3 to be the solution to pretty much everything. Right now, I'm on stage and people are saying, "Hey, look, it's the solution for all AI." There was a talk yesterday where here's all the problems that AI has, and every single one we can solve with Web3 and decentralization. And I'm well, the first principles don't really support that. First, it's an insanity to say we take a very energy inefficient and very expensive use case, AI, so expensive that we are driving up the carbon commitments of every single large tech company through the roof. They should be going down to zero. That's what they had committed to. Instead, they're going completely the other direction. We will see a massive impact on energy across the globe as the technology gets found out. And it's used for a lot of things that, frankly, it's probably not the best use case for. You can use a traditional convolutional network to do a lot of computer vision tasks much more efficiently, but a vision transformer is really easy to use. It's just very expensive, right? So now we take that technology and we say the solution to that technology is to take the second most inefficient energy technology we have, which is the solution to every problem since 2012 or something like that, and it's going to solve it. I'm sorry, that's religion. That is not technology.
So technology cannot solve everything. And now I come to societal harms. There's a lot of talk about hallucination, misinformation, disinformation, about verifying the data, but the data quality, right? The correctness of the data, the source of the data. How much do you think that technology can help solve some of these challenges?
There's two fundamental rules. Technology cannot solve societal dilemmas. And anyone who tells you that technology will solve a societal dilemma is lying to you. It's very simple. Many problems that we face today are societal dilemmas. So when you take open source, open models versus closed model, right? Big tech would like you to believe, some of big tech, not all of it, would like you to believe that if they can be trusted with running this safely. We cannot put this powerful technology that will change the world. By the way, when you look at models today, they are nowhere near dangerous. You can get the same information out of Google that you can get out of GPT-4. So why should we accept the narrative right now, from a regulatory perspective, for example, that we need to treat Google differently than Google search differently than AI? If we don't like people making bombs, then Google search needs to be held to the same standard, because right now they're the same. So the entire narrative that we're facing is that there's actually a forward projection. Lots of talk in AI is about, in the future, it's going to do that. Look, if you follow this line, it will do that. If we just pump enough compute into this primordial soup of internet posting, troll posts, real information, pictures, cats, and whatnot, it will somehow transcend into the world's AGI that will either doom us or bring our salvation and solve climate change. When Steve Jobs goes on stage and shows the iPhone and says, "This will change your life," well, you bought it 3 months later, it did change your life, right? The maps disappeared, you had GPS, there were a whole bunch of life-changing aspects. This technology, Web3, what I'm saying is that the narrative that is driving it is all about something in the future, and is trying to compel people, whether or not it's government regulators or companies, to adopt, to make changes to their life, to rush into adopting it, because that is what needs to be done if those valuations that are floating on that narrative are to be met. And that is a problem. That's a security problem. That's a problem that for company budgets. That's a societal problem. That's a problem for people who are afraid for their career, right? I think we deserve better than that. And we can do better. We can understand better what the technology does.
So you talk about some of the sort of forward projections that seem to be a lot more hype than reality, right? And you talk about this also gap of understanding, how ordinary people understand or can assess the limitations of the current Gen AI. Can you talk a little bit more about, what are the kind of limitations that you see that people don't quite understand yet?
Well, the number one limitation is that it's not delivering value for people right now. So you actually talk to companies who've tried to roll out generative AI, right? You find a pretty low number of successful case studies, right? If there were, we would see a lot more, right? And the reason is actually incredibly simple. It's not because the technology doesn't work. We have a general purpose technology here. It has broad impact. It's incredibly powerful because it unlocks new capabilities that we did not have before, right? And when you distill it all down to the most basic, it is data plus training equals model. Sounds pretty stupid, but data is, that heap of work that anyone has done. Let's say photographs from a photographer, paintings, sales pitches someone has written. We feed that into the training that extracts the patterns of creation. It finds the hidden rules of creation. We managed to create a very, very simple, it's actually not many lines of code, device that can find the patterns of creation, create a mathematical function, we call a model, that can act as an engine of creation by applying these rules. So that is what we created. That's the fundamental capability, right? And when you think about that, you understand that this is earth-shattering. Because unlike, let's say, Industrial Revolution, where we look at a human manually, we understand how they do their job, and we use our knowledge of mechanics and machines to build a machine to automate that process. We have automated the process of building the machine. We would be ill-served to say this is hype, this isn't working. We have something that is working here, it's just not very reliable at this point in time. The problem is, and I think everyone has found this in the last couple of months, is two things. One, the pace of change. You take your team, you start running, you build with the technology as it is out today. You have to onboard it, you have to learn it. It's a little bit of work, but you build. By the time you launch, the technology has fundamentally changed. A year and a half ago, there were no edge models. There were no llamas. You had to work with an open AI API. Today, we are in a different world. There were no vision transformers. Models had a 4 kilobyte context window. Now they can process 2 million tokens, right? These are fundamental changes. Companies that build complex, expensive rack systems realize that for many use cases, they don't need them anymore because by the time they finish that expensive system, the models had the ability to have perfect recall on 1 million tokens, right? So we are in a technological explosion, and when you are in a situation like that, not acting is often the better choice than acting because you're buying a better TV with 4 times the resolution and half the energy usage every month, right? It's of course a problem that at some point you have to adopt, but everyone who rushed in early actually got screwed, and it's an incentive problem. The incentive is, everyone runs around preaching, Google gives you free courses, right? Free courses to learn how to spend money on Vertex AI, Amazon does it for Bedrock, Microsoft does it for Azure. That compute wants to be paid. User numbers have to be shown. So the incentive for the companies that are rolling out the technology is don't think, adopt. And the incentives for the consultancies that you go to, right, the big consultancies, what is the incentive? The incentive is implementation projects. That's how the money is being made. So large implementation project. What we argue for and what we're trying to scale non-profit to as many SMEs, companies, agencies, other non-profits in Singapore and Southeast Asia and hopefully further is, no, stop. Understand, we will give your non-technical people, the business people, the ability to understand this technology on a fundamental level and make the strategic choices that are necessary to not get rolled, not waste money on this.
So this is the Center for AI.
That is the Center for AI Leadership. It's actually, since you're in cybersecurity, it's modeled on the idea of that we had in cybersecurity, where talent is a massive constraining factor. It takes us decades to build the talent, yet we both know the world outside is really brutal. And if in an optimal world, every SME would have a cybersecurity professional. We don't have that. We accept that it won't be real for many, many years. And we, coming from the consulting side, having worked with universities, we've worked with NIE, like the National Institute for Education here and so on, we have a really good sense that, education isn't going to save us on this for now, because they are also caught in an exponential change. What do we teach people? Is it prompt engineering? People say it's already gone, right? We don't know. We don't have a path right now to careers or even skills. So what we see is we bundle a few experts that we have, and we use that to provide the necessary context understanding and clean information feed to as many member companies as possible, in the same way the ISECs are, propagating CVEs and analysis and calls to action.
So for our audience who's listening to this, what would be your number one takeaway for them, listening to your views?
So, you can't hide from it. This is a new capability. It's like gunpowder. It's like the printing press. There's no way from hiding from it. Ignoring it is not an option. Mm-hmm. It is tempting. There's a lot of narratives of, it's all hype. Yes, there's a lot of hype. Yes, there's probably a crash in investments and all of these kind of things. But the core capability is, when you get hands-on with them, when you use them, they are real. The best way to describe AI right now is there's an unstable nuclear core of a new capability that is incredibly powerful, but we are building a lot of custom software. This is why software engineers are not going to away in the next couple of years. We build a lot of custom containment around that LLM can accidentally misunderstand you, that LLM has unsolved security issues like prompt injection due to the fact that we're mixing instruction and data in the same field, the prompt, right? These are fundamental problems. So you have to build scaffolding, which is extremely hard to build, to contain this very powerful technology and make it useful. And then you end up with legacy software, like a chatbot. There's a core in there that is real, that you need to start understanding, and you don't need to learn math for it. You don't need to understand exactly how it works, but you need to understand the patterns and the first principles of it. And then you need to think, hey, how does that affect my career? How does that affect my job? When you're an artist, right, you see it affecting your career. This is no joke. Right? If you're a painter, you're selling paintings, you're fine. But if you are a marketing artist somewhere, this is already coming for your job, and you know it. So no hiding, no hoping that someone will bail you out. Like nations are in competition with each other. Governments have no choice, right, around the adoption of the technology. But we can do it in a way that needs to be done at the right pace. If you are a leader in an organization, this is your time to lead. You're not going to manage through something that changes the rules, and this is changing the rules. It's new capabilities, right? I'll give you a quick example with agents. A lot of people are telling you right now, invest in agents. Agents are going to be the future. They're going to come after everyone. Here's why first principles thinking is so good at disarming. When you look at what an agent is a system executing a task, or even a job, which is a series of tasks. And a task is multiple steps. Then, in order to automate that, you need 99.9% accuracy or reliability on each step in order to be able to automate it efficiently, because we have compounding error. Currently, when you look at LLMs, we have a roughly 10% failure chance from all sources. We have in the best case with retrieval augmented generation, a 6% failure chance due to hallucinations. We just seem to not be able to get rid of them, and it's understandable. There is, misunderstanding on the LLM and the prompt. There's all kind of problems. So you're now already bounded at 90%, nowhere near 99%. It means that agents, until we solve many of these fundamental problems and get to a reliability that is in the standard operational range of 999, there will be no agents unless a company spends a lot of money trying to build this manual containment to work past these problems. And that is individualized. This cannot be scaled very easily, right? So understanding, first principles understanding, it's not that scary. we see teachers, we see like people in all kind of different organizations actually light up and go, oh, now I understand. And I think that is what you need to do. If gunpowder shows up next door, you cannot ignore it.
That's right, yeah. So what you're saying is for every one of us, we have the responsibility to understand the first principles of AI and how that may impact our jobs. It's not going away. It's
our jobs, our business model, our
lives,
companies,
yeah,
our
that's
lives,
right.
right?
Yeah, that's
and
right.
if you are a leader, you need to equip yourself to lead. In the last 20 years, we made a terrible mistake, which I benefited from, you probably benefit from. If you were in tech, you were the new church. Right? In the ancient days, people would go to the priests and say, hey, we'll get your counsel before we make a decision, lest we lead our people into the desert, right? And today, the number one risk to most companies is technological disruption for the last 20 years. So we created, our technology church. Every company has the technology evangelists, the cardinals, the CTOs. And we go to them and say, hey, can you, we have this new technology, can it do this, can it do that? And the problem is that leads to yes, because that grows that particular church, right? We have given the responsibility to truly understand the impact of technology to the people who benefit most by bringing out that technology. And it's not malicious. It's just like when we grow up in tech, we like tech and we see tech as a solution to many problems. But when you have been in tech as long as I have, right? And I was in gaming. I wrestled with NVIDIA, for 20 years at this point, right? Then you're at a point where you understand that actually we're not serving ourselves well. We need a holistic view. You bring this technology into your game company, it doesn't just affect tech. It affects the artists, it affects the writers, it affects the marketing department. And if you bring it into technology in a situation where, jobs are at line and so on, you are not going to get the right decisions. Right? It's just, that's not how it works. So we need broader leadership, and we need leaders specifically in other dimensions than tech to step up, take control, and say, hey, wait a moment, you are throwing jargon at me. Or like Elon, right? You're like, the AGI god will rise next year, and because I have done something in tech before, you have to believe me. I'm sorry, we need a French Revolution. I don't mean heads off, but we need to secularize our decision making to get to a holistic point between society, economy, company values, and AI.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of topics that we can cover. I mean, we barely scratch, the surface when you talk. You briefly touched the point on regulations, and I think that's a whole new topic. And you also talked about cybersecurity. Of course, there's a lot of security discussions to be had when it comes to AI, and But I'm afraid that we're running out of time. So thank you so much for your time today.
Very nice meeting you, and it's nice to be here at Super AI and.
Yeah, catch up.
Everyone survive and learn about AI.
Yes.